I'm winning this time, Si. You can count on that. What? How? Oh, this game's stupid. Talk about being a sore loser. Wait a minute, he just took something. Can't believe the cartoon guy would stoop so low. First it's one of my Sonic the Hedgehog hoodies, and now one of my beloved controllers. It's a good thing that I have plenty of spares, so let's carry on the fight against M. Bison. What am I sitting on? Oh, it's a Marvel comic, and in fact, I've not read this one in absolutely ages. And you know what? Come to think of it, what do you get when you combine the world of Marvel with that of Capcom? The outcome would be the highly fantastic Marvel vs. Capcom games, which are in their own right champions of the fighting genre.
Nice.
But to fully appreciate the amazing titles starring some of the greatest fighters as well as the strongest heroes the world has ever known, we had to take a trip back to the past. Now, fighting titles have been a staple within the world of gaming ever since the late 70s, and from here the fighting genre would have other titles that have since gone on to become household names. Obviously, such fighting series that need no introduction are Virtua Fighter, Mortal Kombat, Tekken, and the legendary Street Fighter 2. And while video games have become one of the biggest sources of entertainment in the modern age, there was a time when comics reigned supreme.
Of course!
Now, two of the biggest publishers are of course Marvel and DC, that over the years have had some of the greatest icons to appear within their pages. And such was the popularity of these comics that eventually the world of gaming would have many titles starring some of the world's greatest heroes. With each generation, gamers got to enjoy some classics, and over the years there have been some truly remarkable titles, especially those surrounding the mythos created by Marvel. Now these titles are still enjoyable to play even now, especially this one starring the world's angriest Green Giant.
Ho ho ho. Green Giant.
But it was back in the 90s that this partnership between Marvel and Capcom was born, and from this team up, arcade gamers were blessed with X-Men vs. Street Fighter. When X-Men vs. Street Fighter hit the arcades in the mid-90s, it was welcomed with open arms, especially by those that were fans of Children of the Atom and Marvel superheroes.
You're goddamn right.
With a balanced selection of playable characters to choose from, X-Men vs. Street Fighter garnered massive popularity within the arcade. Eventually, X-Men vs. Street Fighter would go on to have a sequel, landing in the arcade a whole year later. Once again, gameplay had remained the same, following the 2D style of one-on-one combat. But with Marvel Superheroes vs. Street Fighter, there was more emphasis on tag team fighting, introducing the gaming mechanic of variable assist. This was essentially a way of allowing gamers to utilise their off-screen partner, and the result would be some over-the-top combos.
That's pretty good.
Now, as much fun as those titles are, gamers were itching for more, especially the over-the-top combat. And in 1998, their prayers were answered. Marvel vs. Capcom Clash of Superheroes took the arcade scene by storm. However, unlike the first two games that limit itself strictly to the Street Fighter series, Clash of Superheroes introduced other gaming characters from the long history of video games from Capcom. Everything from the gameplay, the music, and the overall experience of this arcade hit felt absolutely perfect. And eventually, Clash of Superheroes would find itself being ported over to the Sega Saturn and the Sony PlayStation. Yes! Recalling it now, one of my brothers had this game when I was growing up. He would entice his friends over just to test out their fighting skills.
Just bring it, bitch!
Which of course would always be a lot of fun. And this excitement continued when Marvel vs. Capcom 2 was released. Taking everything that made the first title such a success and improving upon it tenfold, Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes was classed by many as the perfect sequel. With a character roster of 56 fighters to choose from, New Age of Heroes refined a different version of its variable assisting gaming mechanic. Basically, gamers could choose a main fighter as well as two others that could aid them in the battle, performing a singular special move that would even impress Akuma himself.
Neat.
Now the series would eventually go on a long hiatus of just over a decade, and in 2011, Marvel vs. Capcom 3 came dragon punching its way back to the world of gaming. The tried and tested games mechanic of the predecessors had returned once again, including the tag team style of combat that was so popular. But with Fate of Two Worlds, this style of gameplay was turned up a notch. This time around, gamers could have 3 fighters team up in order to take down the opposition. However, fighters could exchange places, building up combos throughout a system of well-timed hits. But the main focus of Marvel vs. Capcom 3 was the simplification and ease of gameplay to entice new gamers to the franchise. In a nutshell, it felt as if Fate of Two Worlds had returned back to its arcade gaming roots, with its simplified control scheme. You know, the one that was made famous by some sort of street fighting game. And with a massive roster of fighters compared to previous titles, hardcore fans were quite pleased to see some new faces, especially the merc with a mouth, Deadpool.
I get the cover of the next Street Fighter for this, right, Capcom?
It seemed that the popularity surrounding Marvel vs. Capcom 3 could be felt all around the world, and despite some criticisms over its online capabilities, it was still highly popular and would lead to another sequel called Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite. The formula that made fighting games a massive success was ever present with Marvel vs. Capcom Infinite, but the tag team system had been given a massive overhaul. Instead of the variable assist system introduced in Marvel vs. Capcom 2, Infinite replaced it with active switching, allowing players more freedom to create over-the-top combos. This combination, when implemented correctly, was unstoppable. Unstoppable. Hold on, I thought that only worked when I said the word fantastic. Fantastic. Unstoppable. Anyway, this combination, if implemented correctly, was unstoppable to the point where gamers would rage quit their game entirely. All in all, the Marvel vs. Capcom games have gone down in gaming history as true classics of the fighting genre. With each rendition of the series, there have been multiple characters added, answering some playground arguments from yesteryear. One that comes to mind is who'd win in a fight against Captain America and Weapon X himself, Wolverine.
Interesting.
While we wait in anticipation for the next few installments of the Marvel vs. Capcom franchise, I can only wonder as to what new challenges lay ahead for this highly fun and addictive fighting series. Perhaps gamers will get to see some obscure and forgotten characters enter the fray. Either way, the world of gaming is blessed to have the Marvel vs. Capcom titles for gamers to enjoy. But my question for everybody watching is, who would you have in your team and why? Anyway, come back next time where the month of horror returns, all starting with A Witch with a Mysterious Past. Thank you so much for watching and see you next game.